Welcome to WPVM's public service programming for Asheville and the surrounding communities. Today's forum features candidates running for the upcoming City Council primary in early March. The candidates Drew Ball and Nina Ireland. There are 20 candidates in total, and WPVM has extended invitations to all of them. This is the second in the series of 3 forums that we have pre-recorded. Dr. Chris Cooper is the moderator, and I'll turn the programming over to him to begin session 2. Thank you all for participating.
Hey everybody, welcome to the second of 4 Asheville local government candidate forums presented by WPVM, the voice of Asheville. 3 of these forums will be for City Council, including the one today, and we're also going to have one for Mayor. My name is Chris Cooper. I'm a professor at Western Carolina University, and I'll be your host today. I want to thank everybody for listening and paying attention and caring about local government. And I really want to give a big thanks to our candidates. Running for office is a really tough thing to do, and my hat's off to each and every one of them, and I appreciate them being here very much. Before we get to the candidates and their platforms, I'd like to remind everyone just a few things about this election. Well, this election affects everybody who lives in Western North Carolina, of course. Just the people who live in the city of Asheville within city limits are able to vote. If you're not sure whether you live in city limits or not, that's completely understandable. Sometimes mailing addresses are deceiving. So you can just call or email or drop by the Buncombe County Board of Elections, and they'll be able to help you out. If you're not if you don't know how you're registered to vote, you can also ask them for that. And you can also look up on their website or on the State Board of Elections website to get a sample ballot to sort of guide your choices. As a reminder, today's forum is for the March 3rd primary. Mail balloting is already underway. We've already had ballots sent out and accepted. In-person early voting begins February 12th and runs through February 28th at 11 sites throughout Buncombe County. If you're not registered to vote, at least right now while we're recording this on January 27th, there's still no problem. You can complete this process by February 6th, or you can complete same-day registration during the early voting period only. So you can't do same-day registration on Election Day, but you can during that early voting period I referred to before. This is a nonpartisan election, meaning that regardless of which party primary ballot you select, if you're unaffiliated, you get to select your choice of ballots. You're going to see these same 20 candidates on the ballot no matter what. And speaking of these candidates, there are 20 of them, which I think is great news for the city of Asheville, great news for our citizens, great news that people are this invested in local government. Out of those 20, you will select 3 on your ballot. The top 6 will then move on to the general election ballot, where you're going to see at least some of those names again. Ultimately, 3 folks are going to fill seats on the Asheville City Council. We're fortunate to have 2 of those candidates today. I'll allow them to introduce themselves in just a minute, but let me just let everybody know the rules today, and of course remind our candidates. They're both going to begin with 1-minute opening statements. They're going to conclude with 1-minute closing statements. And in between, I'm going to ask some questions. Each candidate's going to have 2 minutes to respond. And if we have any rebuttals or follow-ups, we'll also have 2 minutes for those. And I will alternate the order that we will go in. So with that, we will begin opening statements, and we will start with Drew Ball.
Thanks, Chris. My name is Drew Ball, and I currently serve on the Buncombe County Commission. And I'm running because I feel like Asheville City Council really needs to be focused on making people's lives better and really tackling the problems that are making it harder for people to live here. I feel like that's addressing the rising costs, particularly the cost of housing, supporting our local businesses, ensuring we're building back resilient, and really standing up for all of our neighbors. Over the past year, it's been an honor to serve on the Buncombe County Commission, where I've helped tackle one of the most challenging periods our city's faced in Helen recovery. And as a volunteer firefighter in Reynolds, the Reynolds Fire District, that's where I was during the storm. And so I've seen what happens when systems are stretched thin, how much residents depend on competent, responsive public leadership. And that's the experience that I'm hoping to bring to Asheville City Council. The past 20 years, I've worked in policy. I got an MPA with a focus in state and local management. Public administration has been a big focus of mine, but I've also been working as an environmental advocate for organizations like Natural Resources Defense Council, Appalachian Trail Conservancy, Sierra Club, Environment North Carolina. And so really the past 20 years of my life, also working in the North Carolina General Assembly, has been focused on making healthier, safer communities. And that is something I've really focused on over the past year on the county commission. I've worked to be transparent, accessible, open, and easily available to talk with constituents. So it's been a real honor, and I'm running for Asheville City Council to continue serving my community.
Great. Thank you so much. Nina?
Well, my name is Nina Ireland. I am a second-generation Asheville native, a mother of 4 beautiful children, an entrepreneur, a hospitality worker, and like most of us in 2026, a content creator too. I was raised in the East End Valley community, and I recently moved to the River Arts District likely because somebody had to leave after Helen. And let's be honest, Helen changed our lives forever. I graduated from SILSAT Asheville High. I graduated from AD Tech, and I earned my bachelor's degree in mass communication from UNC Asheville. At this point, I don't think you can get any more Asheville than that. As an entrepreneur, I've worked and served across the city in several spaces, from salons, event spaces, nonprofit organizations, and more. One organization that I'm very proud of is the GAP ABL, which stands for Government Accountability Project, where a group of us are working together to help hold local government accountable to the residents of Asheville and Buncombe County. And with all seriousness, even as a college graduate, I juggle multiple jobs to raise my family here. I live the reality of how challenging it is for working families to remain in a place they love. I believe in higher education. I also believe deeply in trade, work, and labor. My education taught me to think critically, challenge the status quo, and problem solve, skills that prepared me to run for office. But it is my trade and hospitality work that has provided my family's livelihood. And that's why I'm running. It's time for Asheville to have leaders who are deeply connected to the day-to-day experiences of the people who live and work here, not just those with access, influence, or spare time. I believe our city works best when our leadership reflects the real lives of its residents. And if you're willing to take a chance on me, you will see that I'm about listening, showing up, and working together to build a city that's accountable to its people, accessible to its neighborhoods and businesses, and invested in its recovery and future. I'm running for city council because this city raised me, and I'm committed to helping it work better for all of us. To learn more about my platform, you can visit me at nina4abl.com. And don't forget to vote Nina Ireland March 3rd.
Great. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate that from both of you. And we'll start the next question with Nina and then go to Drew. Apologies, we've had some technical difficulties, but I think everybody's back. So we got through some compelling opening statements where folks were giving their stories, which I really appreciate. And so we're going with our first question, which I will, of course, repeat to Nina Ireland first, and then we're going to go to Drew Ball. So I thought we'd start this forum, the first question in this forum, with something positive. What's one thing the city of Asheville does well, and how will you work to maintain progress on the issue you identify if you're on council? Nina?
I think one thing that City Council and the mayor has done well is securing funding for state and federal dollars to help us recover with Helen, and even going to get that funding, ask for that funding boldly that we need it right now for economic recovery and rebuilding back our lives. And I will be a part of that push if elected to City Council to making sure that we recover and build back stronger than before the storm has happened, and that the people who live and work here feel like they were brought back and rebuilt as well in the time frame that we had with Helen. I think that has been something that has been really reflective over the last almost over a year now, that they have done well. I know that it's been a holdup from the state level, but advocating for those dollars to get here and to do real recovery has been something that they have done really well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Drew?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that, going to DC, going to Raleigh, I've been on a number of trips as a county commissioner to both DC and Raleigh to advocate for that funding. And I think that a number of members of the city council and our mayor have done a good job of working to pull those dollars in. Another thing I think that the city does well is they do a lot of community engagement sessions. I just went to one recently around the Malvern Hills pool that was really great. There was one at the Asheville Middle School around recovery and rebuilding and what we want our parks to look like. And there was hundreds of people there. And it was really, really inspiring. And I can remember even back to 2009 when I was a lobbyist for the North Carolina Sierra Club. I was working with Susan Fisher on a bill that would help create public financing for clean energy infrastructure. And I was working in Raleigh. I came up to, back up to Asheville, and there's this huge community engagement session. So I feel like that community engagement is really just part of Asheville's DNA with all the charrettes we do and things like that. But Asheville does a great job of having a civically minded electorate. And I think that's obvious because we have 20 great candidates that are running for Asheville City Council.
That's great. Well, thanks to both of you for that. We'll start with Drew with this next question. The 2023 Missing Middle Housing Study called for, among other things, more density, altered zoning laws, and it's gotten a lot more attention really just the last couple of weeks. Mayor Manheimer noted to the Asheville Watchdog that, quote, "there's definitely a divide on the council," end quote, on the issue. What is your view of the Missing Middle Study, and would you support implementation of its recommendations? Again, we'll start with Drew.
I have very strong support for the Missing Middle Displacement Study. I think it is a wonderful roadmap, a great blueprint on how we tackle our housing affordability crisis, which is really the root of so many issues that we face, from transportation to residents experiencing homelessness. And I think it is a great roadmap, and it shows us how we can actually tackle the cost of housing by following it. I think that these things can be scary. They can be, there are neighborhoods who have seen gentrification. They have seen displacement because of past policies. So there is understandably a lot of reticence and concern about how we move forward. But I think that we need to be eager in putting that plan into action, because if we have displacement strategies alongside missing middle, increasing our density, it can go a long way to improving the quality of life here in Asheville. We are growing roughly, the county and city, roughly 10-15% per year. Those folks are coming to Asheville regardless of what we do. So if we fail to plan for that, it's only going to make things harder for folks who live here now. And it's just going to continue to create sprawl and a community we really have to ask ourselves if we want to live in. So by protecting our charm, we've got to tackle and move that plan forward.
Great. Thank you so much. Nina?
I definitely agree with the Missing Middle Housing Study. I think that there is a big divide on city council right now that we see playing out in the news that is unfortunate, with the anti-displacement part of it, the Chapter 5. And I know people have encouraged people to read Chapter 5 of the anti-displacement study, but I go a step further to read Chapter 5 and Chapter 6 to see what the recommendations are from the city that talk about people who are being displaced. And I think that's the biggest thing with all Asheville residents. Legacy neighborhoods are what's at the forefront that people are talking about. But I think that the one basic question that we should ask when dealing with any kind of housing structure and putting missing middle housing that is desperately needed, not just for people flooding into North Carolina or Asheville, but for the residents who are currently here that have a hard time getting out their parents' home, or moving into an apartment without a roommate, or buying a home without having a bunch of people to have to go in or help you with it. So I think that the biggest question we have to ask is, will this decision make it harder for residents to stay here who are already here as well? And I think we have to put certain anti-displacement policies across the board to help residents who are born here, raised here, or want to stay here and move here, and not overlook the people who are here. Because the biggest part of the study that I read is that the housing that we're still trying to build is still missing a lot of the middle people that it claimed that it wants to help. So, and that's not just Black and brown people, that's people across the board. So I think we need to take we definitely need to address it. And there's definitely a lot of areas that are ready for missing middle housing to be built, and can have that in different neighborhoods around the city right now. And that's what Chapter 6 talks about. There is a solution versus pushing people that might be displaced in spite of it.
Great. Thank you so much. We'll start back with you on this next one, Nina. The tourism industry obviously continues to drive much of Asheville's economy, but at the same time, some have called it a devil's bargain that benefits the wealthy, uses public resources, it doesn't put enough back in the community. What is your view of the proper role of tourism in Asheville's economy, and what specific policies would you champion on Asheville City Council to tamper the worst part of its effects? Nina?
Tourism is a huge part of our economy, from the arts and culture aspect of a lot of us relying in heavily on people outside to buy different things within the arts and crafts community here. Also with the hospitality community here. I think it was when I went to the county commissioners meeting, I seen the TDA report, and just watching that graph of how the numbers drastically went down in 2025, it was because of the hurricane in 2024. And I was very much affected by that as a hospitality worker. The bulk of my income came from the season. The bulk of my work was starting right when the storm happened. So my income was literally from that job wiped out. And also as a natural hairstylist, it was wiped out with not having water in the city. Not saying that my job as a stylist necessarily depends on tourism, but hospitality and everything like that definitely does. What I think it showed us is how vulnerable our economy is to tourism, and the need to diversify our economic stability here. We need to bring more green jobs, tech jobs, diversify the industrial jobs that we have here to better serve and provide stability. Because if we have stability, we can afford to live and work here as well. We can afford to stay here as well. And that's the biggest thing. I just think we need to diversify our economy and bring other jobs and create better workforce for people to participate in and to go back to school with. A lot of things, there's not a lot of night programs here to teach people different trades. A lot of things are focused on to the 9 to 5 hours, and it's really hard if you're working a 9 to 5 to go now get another trade in a different category. So I just think we need to be creatively and problem solve and bring jobs in that can provide stability, which will induce affordability as well.
Thank you very much. Drew?
Yeah, Asheville's history is intrinsically linked to tourism. That it's part of why people have been coming up to the mountains for a long time. But a lot of folks don't realize we've also had a history of manufacturing here in our area. In Swannanoa and where the Walmart currently is, there was a lot of manufacturing in those areas. And I think we can get back to that. I also think that tourism is incredibly important. I've worked in the service industry. I worked at MG Road for a little while, and it was feast or famine, right? When we have it's peak leaf season and we have folks coming up, you're doing pretty well. But when that cold weather hits, it's really hard to make it in the service industry, and we have to be really cognizant of that. At the same time, tourism really helps support our arts community, right? That is a huge part of our identity and who we are. And so, there's a balance there. I like to joke that, everybody that moves to Asheville want to be the last person to move to Asheville. It's like, we have so many great restaurants and all these great artists and artist communities. And it's like, well, tourism helps that, right? But it can't be the only thing that helps drive that. So I do think we have to work to continue to diversify our economy so that we aren't overly reliant on tourism. Tourism took a huge hit during the storm, and we were in really rough shape because of it. And it was really hard to manage our county budget because of that shortfall. We got through it. We didn't fire any county staff. Our people are our most important aspect of who we are at the county level. They do such important work. So we were able to keep all of our staff. But we're also seeing this push from the federal level. This administration has been cutting Park Service jobs, a lot of federal jobs that were in the area, VA jobs. So, we're really getting hit from all sides. So we do need to diversify our economy, create partnerships with AB Tech, which is something we've done at the county level, and also work to bring in new manufacturing jobs, which is something else we've been working on at the county level as well.
Great. Thank you both. So I think in your answers, you both already have touched a little bit on Helene. So let's talk a little bit more about it. Right, Asheville and Western North Carolina more generally continue to suffer, many of the effects of Helene. How would you assess the progress that's been made, and what specific policies would you prioritize on council to advance recovery in the city? So how would you assess the progress made, and what specific policies would you prioritize to advance recovery in the city? We'll start here with Drew.
Yeah, I would say that this community has really shown up for each other. So much of this recovery hasn't been government driven. It's been people showing up with chainsaws, looking out for their neighbors. And I think that's why we've come a long way. And you see that, we had folks from FEMA from all these national departments who came to Asheville, and they would say, I've never seen a community after a disaster like this come together and really take care of each other. And so huge credit to our residents. I think we've worked really hard at the local government level, millions of pounds of debris removed from our roadways, from our rivers. We've fought really hard. As I mentioned, I've been to DC and Raleigh multiple times to work with our federal delegation and our state delegation to bring in the dollars that are owed to us to recover. That has been a challenge, and oftentimes we just have to, call them out and continue to work on bringing those dollars in, because that's going to be one of those critical pieces of it. We have a lot of money that we have already paid that is going to have to get reimbursed to us from FEMA and the federal government. So focusing on that, and I think that engaging the community, we have an opportunity right now, not just to build back what was there, but to build back even better and build back more resilient. What do we want our future to look like? What do we want our preparedness to look like next time that we have a major disaster, be it flood, wildfire, snowstorm? We've really got to invest in our first response. Flood gauges. Buncombe County has created a Helen recovery plan in partnership with all of our municipalities, and it creates a great roadmap. There are a lot of recommendations in there to ensure we're building back more resilient, while also ensuring that we are supporting our community through the arts, through local businesses, local restaurants. So we've really got to focus on ensuring that everybody gets through this storm, because some folks are back to normal, right? Some folks are living their life like the storm never even happened, but there are still some folks who are still living in FEMA trailers, and we can't let those folks fall through the cracks. So ensuring the recovery lifts up everybody, and that everybody who wants to stay after the storm can still make their life here.
Nina?
So I'm answering the progress that's been made and prioritization, right? I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that.
No, you're all fine. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, so the progress that I think we've made, again, by securing some of that funding to get back so the work can start, like Drew said, the debris removal, a lot of things look better than what people expected. I don't necessarily would say that it's back to normal. I think some of our top priorities going into Helen recovery would be just making sure we have stable infrastructure, fixing the infrastructure, making sure our water, our storm water is good, fixing people's businesses and homes. There are a lot of people's homes that are damaged that didn't get much from FEMA or federal relief, or even their homeowner insurance for that sake. Also making sure that there's dollars still set aside for people who were greatly affected with their work that might not can really just jump into a different trade or a career, and making sure that rental assistance is still out there for people who need it, who are not homeowners, that make up a majority of our residents with the affordability aspect. And then again, just public facilities, again, prioritizing revitalization and not necessarily expansion at this time. I'm not going to be prioritizing on trying to just build up new things just for the sake of it. I want to get us back with recovery money to a better place than before, but also just making sure the residents and the small business owners have a cushion better than what they had before Helen as well.
Great. Thank you so much. We'll start with you on this next one, Nina. Sort of got a couple questions here about collaboration, just to sort of level set. As you know, North Carolina is not a home rule state, meaning local governments, municipalities in particular, in North Carolina must work in consultation with the state government on many issues. Sometimes that relationship has been productive and collaborative with state government and state legislature in particular. Other times it's been tense. How do you see the relationship between the city of Asheville and the General Assembly, and how would you work with the state and the General Assembly to get better outcomes for the city and its residents? Nina.
That is a great question. Being new to this side of politics, if elected in, the biggest thing is to figure out where our relationships are. There are many things that I think that probably are going really well with the state and local government, and there are things that I think we can talk about and improve on. And the biggest thing is having more tourism dollars, like the hotel occupancy tax, coming back to general government funding. I think that is one of the biggest and key things with being such a heavily tourism city and county, that we could really use a lot of that revenue that comes in to go back to just things like infrastructure, public safety, sanitation, stormwater infrastructure as well. And just also honing in on those partnerships and collaborations that we're doing really well on too, and making sure that those relationships stay and build upon that with what we're doing. Again, not just with federal recovery money, but also going forward with long-term planning as well, that we keep those, that we make note of what we need and that we work to bridge that gap at the state and municipal level.
Okay, great. Drew?
Yeah, so I would say that our partnerships are critical. Part of the reason I'm running for city council is that I've built really strong relationships over the past year on the county commission since being appointed. And I want to utilize those relationships to help continue our recovery and ensure that Asheville is not picked on and taken care of. We are, a pretty progressive city. Out of 20 candidates, I don't think there are any Republicans running. But the Republicans nominate the state legislature. And so, we have to build coalitions, build partnerships. We've done that. I've worked with, I believe Maggie Ullman is the representative from Asheville City Council for the American Flood Coalition Western North Carolina Resiliency Partnership. And that is a bipartisan coalition of elected officials from across Western North Carolina to show that, when it comes to recovering from the storm, party does not matter. We were all impacted. And so we have gone to DC together. We've advocated in Raleigh as a united front. So building those types of relationships is really important. I've worked through the Association of County Commissioners to also, go down to Raleigh and advocate on our behalf. Those partnerships are critical. We can't do anything alone. We have a legislature that has historically liked to pick on Asheville. And so, kudos to our state delegation, Representative Turner, Ager, Prather, Senator Mayfield. They do a really good job of protecting Asheville and fighting on our behalf because they build strong relationships across the aisle and have Asheville's interests in mind and look out for us. So I think those partnerships are important, but we also recognize that, we talked about storm recovery. Our budgets are still really rough right now. Like we had a very rough budget season last year. Asheville's currently looking at a potential $30 million shortfall. So a lot of that's going to have to be regenerated with state and federal dollars. And so we have to, build good relationships, stand up for our values, while also building good relationships to help our community see it through.
All right. Thanks to both of you. We'll start with Drew on this one again on the same sort of theme of collaboration. So we talked there a little bit about the kind of vertical collaboration, right, with the state government. I want us to think a little bit kind of horizontally here. So while we're talking about collaboration, many of the problems the city faces, whether it's storm or other, can't be addressed alone. What strategies do you have to coordinate with other municipalities? With Buncombe County, and with the Landis-Scott Regional Council. So what kind of specific strategies do you have to coordinate with other municipalities, Buncombe County and Landis-Scott? And Drew, we'll start with you.
It's a great question. And thankfully, a lot of those venues for collaboration exist. I currently sit on the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is our, multi-governmental board that helps shape the future of what transportation will look like here in our region. And that's a great opportunity to build those relationships and collaborate across city, county lines, which I work really hard to take full advantage of. As I mentioned, the Association of County Commissioners I've been really involved with. On the city side, it'd be the League of Municipalities, which is a great organization that is working really hard for the interests of cities and local governments. Again, that Western North Carolina Resiliency Partnership is just another coalition that we can lean into and engage in. I worked in the General Assembly out of college as a legislative assistant, and that building is pretty rough and tumble. So when you go in there, lockstep, arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder with folks and make those asks, it comes across a lot better. But Landis-Scott Regional Council, again, they do such great work for our community, and we've just got to take full advantage of these avenues that we have to collaborate because we are in this together. We are, an amazing region that faces a lot of the same challenges. And as the big city. Here in the middle of the mountains, we face sometimes more than most. So the more we can collaborate, get outside our city, get outside our county, and build partnerships, it pays dividends for our community.
Okay, great. Thank you, Nina.
Well, I think collaboration is key to building strong communities, building strong cities, especially with other municipal offices or governments throughout North Carolina to see what they're doing well, what's working. I know a lot of things are being done, and I think the Durham Greensboro area with missing middle housing is one, like just looking at what other people are doing in the research and what's doing well that we can collaborate on, learn from, partner with, or adopt even in our own city. The biggest thing with the county, I think we should be very strong with the county and not looked at as two just really big separate things. Like transportation, we should have city county transport in case of people live in Asheville, but work in Buncombe County somewhere. We should just communicate on all levels, whether it's public health, whether it's transportation, public safety. We're on, the city is within the county. So whatever affects us still affects the greater, larger county, I believe. I've never heard something happening in Asheville and people in Arden and Fletcher don't really necessarily just feel unaffected by it. So I think crossing those paths more often than none, it needs to happen. And also with such large deficits, how can we rely on each other to not duplicate services or strain already services? What are people doing well? Where do they have extra that could come over here that we're not putting the strain back on the residents or the sales tax for that purpose? And I think that just strengthening those relationships, exploring them more and diving deeper into them at the county level and at other municipal levels will be a great way to go from here and for the long term.
Great, thanks to both of you. I'm gonna sort of nudge a little bit more on this one and just sort of ask you guys as a follow-up if there's one specific area or one specific policy where you feel like there's an opportunity for collaboration that's not been realized. So I think we talked really well about kind of the importance of collaboration, but one specific policy where you say, hey, here's a place where if I were on council, I could make a difference by collaborating with another government. We'll start back with Drew on this one.
It's storm recovery. It is advocating for our community to bring in the dollars that we are owed from the federal government that are, Kristi Noem asked to sign every check over $100,000, and we've got to continue to push to get that funding flowing. And we've done that through the Western North Carolina Resiliency Partnership, bipartisan group of local governments, local elected officials from across the region, and we've had a lot of success. We've met with the heads of FEMA, we've met with our entire congressional delegation, we've had meetings at the White House. And those are well received because we are united. And so I think when it comes to storm recovery, we've got to continue to fight. Swannanoa still doesn't have a post office after the storm, right? So we've got to come. That affects all of us. That even though it's just Swannanoa, we got to stand up for our neighbors and realize that we're in this together. So I think those types of things are where we really need to stand arm in arm to fight for our communities to recover.
Great, thank you, Nina.
I won't repeat what Drew said, but that's a great answer, Drew. We definitely need the storm recovery. I would say public safety. If there's some crossover that we can have with city and county, the biggest thing is that we need to send the right person out at the right time, and just something like a community paramedic that can handle certain situations when people are dealing with mental health crises and different things like that. So expanding those services to bleed within city and county more, and to be able to respond more and work together more on just something as simple as our homeless population and our underserved communities, and having access to different programs that might not exist in the city that may exist in the county. And if not, just look at city county collaborations on making sure that public safety is one of our top priorities and that we're not overburdening our police department.
Great, thank you so much. We'll start back with Nina on this question. And since you mentioned homelessness briefly, we'll kind of tee off there for a second. So I was looking back at my notes from one of the previous forums that I had the pleasure of moderating a couple of years ago, and I had a question about homelessness, and it struck me that some of the same question still stands, and maybe that's a statement on it itself. But Asheville is experiencing what some have called a quote crisis in homelessness end quote. What is your experience of this issue, and what specific strategies, should the city of Asheville pursue to help people who are unhoused in our community?
Well, I would say homelessness is not just a humanitarian issue, it's a cost issue. It is very costly for us to leave people out on the streets homeless. And I believe that we have to look at the factors that cause homelessness and address those. And I think with addressing those, we will reduce the cost that homelessness is putting on our city, unfortunately. And homelessness does not just look like the people that are just walking our streets. Homelessness could be the fact that there's still a lot of millennials that are a part of that missing middle housing, that just because they might have their parents or somebody else to live with, they might fall in that category too. If it wasn't for those people, where would they be? Would they be out on the streets? So I think first we have to lead into the factors that cause homelessness: job loss, medical emergencies, mental health challenges, domestic violence, reentry from people who are incarcerated, and displacement after disasters. A lot of people are experiencing homelessness, like Drew mentioned earlier, that are still living in trailers and not in their own homes that they had before the storm. Secondly is affordability. We have to talk about the affordability in Asheville. Again, outside of mental health and other things that are keeping people from stable incomes and different things like that, affordability is one of the reasons why I think a lot of people who don't are a part of that missing middle housing don't have housing. Also, we have to look at the third, which is prevention. How do we prevent homelessness in the first place? Which is the most cost-effective approach. Rental assistance, eviction protection, and property tax relief can help keep people in their house at a fraction of the cost than putting the cost on emergency systems, like our ERs, our police, our jails, and different things like that to house these people when things go wrong. I think we need to be invested in data-driven, people-centered solutions that stop straining the police department, the jails, the hospitals, and the city budget. So ignoring homelessness will not make it go away. Addressing homelessness and trying to prevent it are some of the things that cost less, and we'll see a lot less people out on the streets.
Thank you so much. Drew?
That was really well said. I agree. The continuum of care in Asheville does a great job of coordinating partners that are working to support residents that are facing homelessness. They do great work around coordinating our Code Purple, where when temperatures get really low and things get really dangerous outside, helping ensure that folks have a warm place to stay. They coordinate the PIT count, the point in time count, which I encourage everybody who's interested in this issue to engage in the point in time count. It's going to just got rescheduled. It's going to be February 10th and 11th. And that is a kind of a 24-hour snapshot where we go out. I participated in it last year, and you directly speak with folks who are facing homelessness and hear from them what they're facing and try and better understand the issue. And that helps inform federal dollars that can come into the community as well. So the point in time count, and we need volunteers for that. So please check that out if you're interested. But a lot of this also, comes down to ensuring our first responders have the support to deal with this. Our community paramedic program is really strong. It's gotten a lot of national recognition. We need to invest in those types of things. But as Nina said, data-driven types of solutions. Unfortunately, we're seeing the federal government pull back a lot of the resources that they provide to local communities for these types of services. So that's another issue we're going to have to get through and figure out how to tackle. But so much of this comes back to the cost of housing. That missing middle displacement study, again, is a key roadmap that can help address this problem as well. There is a direct correlation between the cost of housing and the homelessness population in the community. And it's a national epidemic. It has gotten worse around the country. And so it's not just Asheville. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned from other communities like Denver, for example, that have some really innovative ways to tackle this. But I also agree that we need to address this on the front end. Rental assistance. The Family Justice Center is a really, really great tool that we have in our community, great partners that help with folks facing domestic violence, which is oftentimes one of the primary reasons folks end up homelessness is what they're facing in the home. So supporting the Family Justice Center is a key piece, and just really trying to work on lowering the cost of housing.
Great. Thanks to both of you. Let's see here. So question, this will be of no surprise to y'all. Questions around Mission Hospital and HCA have dominated the local news for the last few years. I'm interested in your view on those debates, but I'm really even more interested in your view of the proper role of Asheville City Council, if any, in these ongoing debates. So in general, your view of these debates, but really what the role of City Council should be here, Drew.
Well, Mission Hospital used to be, world-class service. A lot of folks, I've talked to folks who, in their golden years, have moved here to be part of, a world-renowned hospital, and sadly, we've seen that reputation diminish. I opposed Mission Hospital receiving their level 1 trauma certificate. We sent a letter requesting DHHS really take a close look as to whether they were going to utilize that to actually make services better or just charge more. And I also went and spoke out against their certificate of need so that we can, the state's going to provide a certificate for 127, I believe, beds in the area. And it's important that we diversify and break up that monopoly. We need to have competition in our healthcare. And that serves all residents better, right? And so I think that it's really critical. It's when one of our largest employers, we need to listen to the nurses, we need to listen to the staff, and when they raise problems, we should be concerned about that, and we should stand with those workers. And we just need to continue to try and call on Mission to deliver the quality care that our community deserves. And I believe that is part of what City Council should do, is holding them accountable, but also, thanking them when they do something right. Like when they helped out during Helen, they were great partners. But, there's a lot of things we work with the hospital on a day-to-day basis, and we've just got to hold them accountable for quality care.
Great. Nina?
I 100% agree with holding them accountable for quality of care. From personal experiences on, like Drew said earlier, Mission Hospital, St. Joseph was a staple place to go. As an insurance agent, one point in time years ago, I was out in Haywood County, and she was like, I tell them to skip Haywood Medical and take me straight to Mission. I don't know if she'll say that now, but I definitely agree. We have to break up kind of the Mission monopoly here. Also, just I don't want to speak from a place of know-how, just from expert advice or anything like that, from whatever our realm of what we can hold them accountable for. But whatever we can hold them accountable for, whether it's the quality of care, breaking up the monopoly and bringing other people in to have better rates for people that get services, more competition in the area will definitely drive different things down, in my opinion, and the quality of care up, because if they know that they can go somewhere else, to Advent, to Novant, and they're getting rave reviews for service, then by all means, and definitely taking whatever concerns we hear, if we can't do it, to the Attorney General, to whoever needs to hold them accountable as HCA. And like Drew said, if they have wins and successes, to celebrate that, but also listening to the nurses and staff as well as their concerns are. But I definitely think Mission Hospital's HCA is one that is a big concern to the residents. How much of that, I don't want to speak out of turn and say that, we can do everything and we don't have no power to do it. But whatever is in our power, I would like to hold them accountable for that.
Great. Thank you so much. And we'll start right back with you, Nina. Transportation policy obviously continues to be a problem, or at least one that's perceived as a problem in the city of Asheville. What would you do on City Council to help alleviate these problems? Nina?
I think I mentioned earlier that I think the county should definitely look at and have more of a closer connection with transportation, public transportation. I had a lady speak to me, I think it was last week, and she told me that a lot of Section 8 people were being pushed into outskirts of the counties, and not necessarily, there was not a lot of places for them to get Section 8 vouchers within Asheville. And these are people who are located in Asheville. So now they have now been displaced, and even more, they might get displaced even more, because if they don't have transportation to get to their jobs, to help cover whatever their part is of the rent that Section 8 is not covering, we're now facing potentially homelessness again. So transportation is a big thing, and public transportation that reflect the working hours of the people who live and work here is a big thing too. So making sure that we have the funding in place for people who want to stay here to be able to get where they need to go, and not just to work, but also to doctor's appointments and to the hospital efficiently. We just need really good policies that can hone in to make sure that we are accessible and affordable and providing stable transportation for the residents. And I think we can do it on a bigger level than just city. I think we can do a city-county partnership to make that stronger.
Great. Thank you very much. Drew?
Again, I think this is an issue that comes back to housing. So we at the MPO level have adopted a goal of more density because we recognize that sprawl and building further out into the county just puts more cars on the road and creates more traffic. It makes it harder to create walkable, dense communities. The director of our MPO just recently presented to County Commission, and he compared a census tract in Montford and a census tract in Sandy Mush in the far northwest part of the county. And the housing that the permits that have been pulled for new housing in Sandy Mush have exploded. A lot of new housing happening up there. A lot of cars having to come all the way down New Leicester to get into the city. The Montford census tract has lost population. They went from having 17% transit ridership to 0. And so if we don't tackle the housing problem, we're chasing our tail, because it's hard to create a public transportation infrastructure if the folks who utilize public transportation are getting pushed farther out into the county or even further. And so I think a lot of it comes back to that, and that part of that missing middle, again, is something that can help us with that. And the other thing about housing too is that there are the Housing Authority presented to the Affordable Housing Committee recently, which I sit on for the county. There are thousands of people in our community who have those housing vouchers. Nina talked about this as well. They can't utilize the housing voucher because we just don't have the supply, right? So like the people who want to live in our community can't. So we could address homelessness. I mean, so many things come back to housing, but specifically on transportation, I think one thing we need to consider is the I-26 project. And I've joked with some of the folks that are running for city council, and I say, if whoever wins, it's going to be one of the things we hear about the most, because as soon as those roads start getting shut down and the traffic gets even worse, people are going to be upset, and understandably so. This community has come together and they've had a charrette to talk about what we want I-26 to look like. There are some benefits there, right? There's the roadway, the bridge, hopefully will make more sense. And hopefully we'll get some good, we're supposed to get some good pedestrian and bike infrastructure, really ideally with a focus on reducing injuries and fatalities. But we've got to be at the table. I mean, that is going to be a massive project. And I've sat in a lot of meetings with DOT and community members. We've got to get this right. And we've got to stand up for Asheville and take it up to the highest levels of DOT if we have to. We can't get pushed around. This project is going to steamroll us if we just lay down and let us pay right over us.
Great. Thank you very much. We'll do one more question, then go to, actually 2 more questions. Go to closing statements, excuse me. We'll start with Drew on this one. So Asheville, of course, created a Community Reparations Commission in 2022, and then that was later disbanded just this last year. Sort of looking back on where we've been and where we're going in terms of reparations, how would you assess this process, and what kinds of lessons learned would you have to offer for the future? Drew?
Yeah, my hat goes off to the folks who've worked really hard on that report. It's incredible, and it is a huge task. We had national attention on how Asheville would handle this, there's some major goals in there, and there's some major milestones on a roadmap that can't be done with one vote, right? We can't just have one vote and say we're gonna solve this issue. Hundreds of years of inequality in our country can't be solved with one city council or county commission vote. But I do think we need to take to heart what is in this. The prison, stop the school to prison pipeline, right? Like, we can't just vote to do that. But push a campaign that pushes home ownership over housing authority rentals, right? Like, these are things that we need to keep in mind, and we need to figure out ways that we can hold ourselves accountable to what that commission has asked us to do, and track our progress along the way, because I do think it is going to be a long progress to achieve that. We also have headwinds at the federal level that are hostile. We have a Justice Department that is opposed to restorative justice, right? We had got a letter, the city and the county got a letter and said, we see what you're doing there, and we're watching you. So, we've got to be thoughtful about how we do this, but it's so important that we take these recommendations to heart and try and incorporate them into what we do as a community, so that we are, alleviating harm and restoring, some of that justice and hearing those communities out and doing what's right by them, because it's a part of our history and we need to be honest about it.
Great. Thank you very much. Nina?
Thank you for the answer too, Drew. I thank the reparations committee, first off, for everything that they did and the 3 years that they worked on this, because I believe it's 3 total, and the 39 recommendations that they came to city council with as to what they found and what could be done. And we do need to take those recommendations into account and see what we can do with those right now that are legally sound, that we can do with it. I was in a meeting one time that because of the hostility going on at the federal level, some things just might have to be worded a little bit differently. But in all, I think that historically, the Black community is definitely due some kind of reparations that should be addressed at some point in time. Whether or not we can get it done through this administration or not, it is something that should be addressed. And when I was at that meeting, I said, if DEI really worked for Black and brown people like it was supposed to, specifically Black people in the country, African Americans that suffered harm, then we wouldn't be asking still for reparations. So something was missed when the whole boom of DEI happened, that still left Black people out to why we're still sitting here today having this conversation. I think when getting in city council, looking at things that can happen legally within our realm, that doesn't necessarily violate the federal level or harm any kind of federal dollars coming into our area. Just taking a look at what all our options are that we can do to address certain inequities that has happened in our community, and going forward with those on their recommendation list or not. What can we do as city council? What can we legally do right now to keep moving the needle forward, or at least to keep the conversations going? I think the city has done a very good job at diversifying how it looks and how it hires. But we still have a long way to go with the deep harm that has happened within Asheville and its history alone. So I think that keeping it as a conversation, not just throwing it on the back burner to 2 years from now when we're in the next election, we can bring it back up. I think it's something that we should always, even if it's not always on the agenda, that we should always think about addressing anytime that we can, and being intentional with our policies and making sure that if we're not going to go with things that spell out intentional solutions to harms that has been done, at least be intentional to making sure the government is accessible going forward and opportunities are available for Black people to be a part of and to get their name in the hat.
Thank you very much. So last question before we do closing statements. What's one issue we're not talking enough about? And I don't necessarily mean us today, but us as the community. What is one issue we're not talking enough about? Nina?
I don't know. I needed an extra 30 seconds to think about that. What? Because I feel like Helen exasperated everything that we're going through right now. Affordability, the economy. What is one thing that we are not talking enough about? Our youth. We're not talking enough about our youth. What are our youth? Especially here in Asheville, we don't have a lot of family-friendly activities. A lot of our parks have been washed away with Helen, which I know that's kind of on the forefront. This summer coming up, we're looking at probably, again, one city pool. We're not talking enough about what it is our youth wants, what's on their minds. What are their concerns? Because they will be here doing these kind of, forums here in the next 10, 15 years, So what are we doing to prepare them? What kind of future are we giving them? And, again, how are we better helping them right now in the city to want to stay in this city once they graduate? A lot of people want to graduate and move away and not come back. A lot of people want to start families that were from here and not come back because there's not a lot of friendly activities to do. That doesn't concern alcohol, that somebody pointed out to me the other day, or beer. So I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. It's always there. It's always there. It's part of Asheville. So I think that you're just putting the youth back on topic and back in the forefront. With everything that's going on, we're telling the kids, not right now, but we should always be putting them and thinking about them with any decisions that we make.
Great. Thank you. Drew?
That's a really good question. I feel like, and I know Nina's having a lot of conversations, so we're like, what are we not talking about? I feel like we probably talked about just about everything with all these conversations we're having out in the community. But, I think the comment about, helping make sure that families can have, raise young families here is important. But also, we've got a lot of folks that are moving to this area that are aging, and we need to make sure that folks can age in place. Again, that comes back to housing affordability, comes back to our quality of Mission Hospital. But, as that aging population continues to get older, which is, the baby boomers and a lot of those folks, we're going to have a city that works for them too. And we got to care for the oldest in our community. So I'd say, caring for the older citizens, a lot of them are going to rely on public transportation. Is it going to work for them? Really kind of thinking through what their quality of life looks like as well, because they're a part of our city too.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, we will close out with closing statements, and we'll start with Drew.
Well, Chris, thanks so much. Nina, it's always fun to be with you as well. We've got a lot of great folks running for City Council, and it's really inspiring to be alongside a lot of these folks. But, I love our mountains, I love our community, and I've helped our community navigate post-Helene as a county commissioner, and that's been a huge honor, and I'm running to continue that service on Asheville City Council. I want to put that budget experience, the relationships I've built, the lessons learned to work. And, I didn't just wake up the other day and say, you know what Asheville needs? More candidates. No, I'm running because I feel like I have something unique to bring to the table, given my time on county commission and also my, decades of working in policy, environmental policy, and community organizing. And I just feel like we really need to focus on making sure that Asheville is affordable so that folks who make the city work can afford to live here. We have to build back more resilient. We have to ensure that we're standing up for all of our residents, that we remain a welcoming community, that we stand up for local businesses and our arts community. And those are the priorities that I want to continue to work towards. I've served as a volunteer firefighter in our community, and I'm calm in crisis, I'm grounded in service, and I'm really focused on real solutions and collaboration and getting to a point where Asheville City Council is working as a team to get things done for our community. And that's the type of solutions and leadership I want to bring to City Council. And it'd be an honor to serve on City Council. You can find out more about me at ballforyall.com. My cell phone's on there, contact information is on there. So if there's a topic we didn't get to, you want to talk about, I'd love to hear about it. So please reach out, ballforyall.com. And Drew Ball, I'd be honored to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And Nina.
Well, thank you, Dr. Cooper, for having us, hosting, facilitating. Thank you to WPVM and the listeners for listening, tuning in, and having us and having this forum so that we can get our ideas and everything out there, or our positions out there to the public. I love Asheville. Even if I'm not always proud of everything that's going on in the world, I'm still proud to be an Ashevillean, to live here. It is a beautiful place. I want to preserve that beauty and the makeup that what makes Asheville. I want to keep Asheville weird, as they say. I also want to make sure that the people who make Asheville run and thrive have a voice at the table, and that's the people who live and work here. And that will continue to be a beautiful thing if those voices are heard, are met with solutions. I have a long history of service in this community, around different communities in the area. I'm not afraid to go anywhere or speak to anybody. So if you see me out, please approach me. Please ask me questions. Please tell me what's on your mind that we might not have talked about today, that is a concern of yours that should be addressed. I hope to earn you guys' vote. I hope to see you guys out on the trail. Vote Nina, March 3rd, Nina Ireland. You can visit my page and contact me. If there's a cell phone up there, please text me because sometimes I am working. That is probably the quickest way to reach me. And I'm on social media, Facebook and Instagram at Nina, 4 spelled out, and Asheville, but my website again is nina4avl.com. And I am honored to have the opportunity and the privilege to run, but also the opportunity potentially to serve Asheville at a greater level.
Great. Well, thanks to you both, and thanks to WPVM for hosting this, and thanks to the listeners.